This is now your 5 minutes of fame. If you want to do like a selfish promotion, you're more than welcome to do it. But I mean, maybe you can just tell us who you are, and and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ray, and I am a part-time artist. I do have a full-time job, and I enjoy doing cosplay on TikTok, and I enjoy my art, and I enjoy sometimes humorous type of videos. Yeah, that's basically what I do on TikTok in a nutshell.
Yeah.
This is very out of character for me to deep dive into such serious topics because I usually try and avoid them. But I'm out of my comfort zone here tonight, and like I said, I am here for it. Okay, so I did prep, not as well as I hoped I would, but time was not my friend. But I hope that you guys gain something from this, and I hope that it will help you for the rest of your future.
Well, thank you, Ryan. It's really good to have you here with us tonight to talk about this because I think it's important that we learn about it, and hopefully, um, you know, well, you'll take us through the steps. How do we cope with it if we are in that situation?
Sorry,
So, thank you for
excuse.
joining us.
Yes, absolutely. So before I start, I just want to put out a little disclaimer that I am in no way a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist, and I'm no expert on the subject matter. It's just that it was introduced to me and it's a tool that I have been using. So I am coming from the point of view of a practitioner, and I try to put together some practical examples and a little bit of nightmare fuel, but you'll see what I mean in a short while.
Okay.
Um, with regards to this. So tonight we're talking about understanding cognitive distortions. What is it? So it's basically something our mind convinces us is true, but is actually not true. Reality gets warped and twisted to the point where you feel you're bad, broken, or deficient. And you begin to feel and see the world as a dangerous or cruel place. I put down two examples here, which is very relevant for a lot of people here. I don't know if there's any international people here yet, but for South Africans, for instance, crime is real, but it's not the same everywhere in South Africa. So it's not like smeared on toast evenly all throughout South Africa. But a lot of South Africans, and I'm sure you guys can agree, we live in fear for that element, for that crime element. But it can feed into being a cognitive distortion that you're just fearful all the time and irrationally fearful when you're actually in a safer environment within South Africa. And then also, this is my personal, and I'm being vulnerable here. This is my personal cognitive distortion. TikTokers. um, I would say TikTok is generally not a safe space.
Mm.
Okay. And you'll understand what I mean a little bit later. Okay, so what am I doing here tonight? What am I doing here tonight? Basically, what we're doing is step one, understanding cognitive distortions. Step two, recognition of cognitive distortions. And then step three is to challenge and to replace those distorted thoughts. Now, here comes the nightmare fuel. I would like you guys to meet Annie. Annie is one of my worst drawings, and I absolutely hate her, but I will not destroy her. So I'm using her as an example tonight. So Annie is a medical doctor, but she wants to be an artist. She's in her mid 20s. She is single. Her mother unfortunately has passed on, and she had an absent dad. So Annie is trying, just to figure out her way in the world and to live a good life. So yeah, Annie has been getting therapy for her cognitive distortions. So we're going to jump right into them. At first, I'm just going to list them and then I'll dive into them a little bit deeper. So I have down here 10 cognitive distortions. I do believe that there is more. And people break it down in different ways. So if you do go and research afterwards, Rudolph. Oh, if you do go and research afterwards, it's not a collectively exclusive list, Yeah. So the first one is all or nothing thinking, thinking in black and white. Second one is overgeneralization. The third one is should statements. The fourth one is jumping to conclusions. The fifth one is something called mental filter. We have at number 6, disqualifying the positive. And at number 7, we have magnification or minimization. This is also known as the binocular trick. And then at number 8, we have emotional reasoning. At number 9, we have labeling or mislabeling. And then at number 10, we have personalization. Okay, so what I have prepared is like a little model that I use for afterwards that I will show you guys. I have drawn it out, and then this is what I physically write down in order to retrain my brain with regards to identified cognitive distortions. And I'm sure you guys might identify with some of these things that I'm going to mention here tonight. Okay, so let's jump into them. The first one, all or nothing thinking, black and white. If your performance falls short of perfect, you see yourself as a total failure. It's either or thinking. So Annie wants to save some money, but she's got so much debt that she thinks, well, it is what it is. I'm already in the debt shit box. I may as well buy the latest MAC lipstick set. That's an example of all or nothing thinking. And then overgeneralization is seeing a single negative as a never-ending pattern of defeat. Annie was rejected by a crush she flirted with. And she asks, why does this always happen? No one could love me. I'm going to sit on the shelf forever in loneliness. That's an example of overgeneralization. And then should statements. I'm sure you've heard them. I'm sure you've given them. I know myself, I am guilty. Oh, just before I go on, I just want to interject. This information that I'm putting out here is not for, my purpose of putting it out here is not for you to digest it and then crucify yourself or be hard on yourself. The focus of this should be the end goal, which is the model to retrain your brain from these thoughts. So once you have identified them, then the healthiest thing would be to look for the solutions. Okay, so let me go back to should statements. Should statements is where you try and motivate yourself, but as if you had to be whipped in order to do something. So musts and oughts, I ought to, is also culprits here. And he says, I must take walks in nature. The ER is busy and has long hours, and I should do this on my off days. I should be going out more. what does this lead to for Annie? It leads to her feeling a little bit of anger or frustration and resentment towards the fact that she's not doing these things. And then you can also use this should statements towards yourself and then against other people as well. And it harbors that same kind of feelings: anger, frustration, resentment. Rudolph, are we still good? Yeah.
We're still good. We're still good.
Okay. I don't see any comments. Everybody's quiet. I'm
I'm writing my questions down, so my questions are coming.
Just put in the comments or something. We'll close our noses. Okay, so yeah. The fourth one is jumping to conclusions, making negative conclusion that has no factual basis. And this one I'm going to dive into a little bit of more sensitive subject matter, but I don't want to dive into it too deeply. So Annie's friend has thoughts of unaliving herself. And Annie says to another friend, people who really want to do it don't talk about it. And this is a example of jumping to conclusions, and it's a harmful myth. And it's a myth that is out here today. So it's a real life example. The stats don't care about your feelings. So the unaliving stat is about 720,000 people yearly, most likely to be men. And then an attempt is the strongest factor. And then, yeah, about 79% of people diagnosed with BPD, with borderline personality disorder, I'm just reading out some facts to you guys, has had an attempt, and an estimated 8 to 10% is successful. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that I have to use the word successful. So why am I bringing up something like borderline personality disorder? Because this disorder is known for people who verbalize it. And that's what makes this myth so harmful. And that is jumping to conclusions.
Sorry, if I might ask, you did mention that it's a higher percentage in men. Did I hear you correct? Okay.
Men are most likely to do it than women, yeah. So I will get to this again, but I'm going to say it now. And it comes from a YouTube creator that I am not that fond of, but I do like this saying is, the facts don't give a fuck about your feelings.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is a fact, and the statistic, on paper, counts. Doesn't matter what the circumstances were.
Yeah.
So,
so you put in the comments here, insecurities.
Yeah, so could that also lead from insecurities? The fact that you're running off on a tangent. Your mind is racing about what could have happened. But it stems from you are not confident, or you're not secure about who you think you are, or your values, or just you as personality. You're not secure with your relationship, for example, and something happens with your partner, and now your mind is racing off on a tangent, without any root cause.
Jumping hoops and Billy Wiley's, yes, yeah. Absolutely. I think that insecurities definitely play a large role in cognitive distortions and a lot of other negative self-beliefs. Aside from insecurities, but that is a very good point that you bring up there, Rudolph, and I absolutely agree with you that, jumping to conclusions can definitely stem from a person's own insecurities.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move on to the next one, which is a mental filter. Focusing only on the negative while ignoring the positives. Just imagine a clear glass of water and it's full to the brim. And then this little negative thing comes and it's a dot of black ink. And then it just spreads all over and the entire water becomes black. And that's what a mental filter basically does. Like if I have to verbally visualize it, if that makes sense.
It does.
So basically, in Annie's case, can I bring up Annie again?
You're more than welcome.
Please laugh at her.
Aiden, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Aiden. Are we waiting on Aiden's question before I continue?
I think
Continue. Oh, okay. Right. Well, hello there. I trust you're well. Yes, we're well. Thank you, Aiden.
Hi, Shady. Okay, so let me continue with Annie's example for mental filter. So someone once critiqued the finger proportions on one of Annie's paintings, and because of this, she regards that painting as her worst painting of all time, even though it was the painting that sold for the highest price.
okay.
Clearly, you got Annie's example from somewhere. No, I'm joking. It has nothing to do with me. Number 6 is disqualifying the positive. So simply rejecting positive experiences by insisting that they don't count. In this way, you can maintain a negative belief that is contradicted by your everyday experiences. So in Annie's case, she now chooses the bear over the man
Yeah.
because of her ex. And she used words like he's a coward or an oxygen thief. And in reality, they had very positive experiences together, like their vacation in Paris, swimming with the dolphins. But she regards this entire relationship as a waste of her time because she's got a goal of getting married and stuff. So yeah, she disqualifies the positive with regards to her ex.
So this is now about the journey versus the end point. So she's looking at the end goal to say, well, okay, she wants to get married, and I don't know if she wants children or not. But the process to get from where they are currently in their relationship to the point where they are married and maybe have kids, she's not taking that into consideration. Am I understanding you correct?
Yes, she basically it ended for
The relationship,
the
yeah.
relationship ended it. So it is her ex.
Okay.
They came to consensus that the relationship needed to end. We don't have any other details. We don't know if Annie is okay. Are you okay, Annie? I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
This is somewhat confusing me, but nevertheless, perhaps we'll do this again.
What is confusing you, Aiden? Would you like us to just explain to you what it is that we're discussing?
Yeah, I can backtrack.
Yeah, sorry, Ray. We can just take a moment and backtrack and explain it to you. So cognitive distortions is a kind of extreme thinking. No, it's okay. I would not have you do so. Okay, so but just to overview, it's a type of extreme thinking that puts you in a negative mindset that makes you see the world and other people and yourself in a very negative way. So Ray is just explaining that there are 10 different types of cognitive distortions. So she's going over what they are, and then she's going to tell us how we can overcome those thinking patterns.
And bear with me, we are almost there. We are at number 7 now. There are more, like I said, there are more cognitive distortions, and various people break it down in different ways. So when I asked Copilot earlier on, it gave me 15, but basically what I read through there all falls in line with the 10 that I am discussing here tonight. So number 7 is magnification or minimization, the binocular trick. So it's exaggerating negatives while downplaying positives. Annie attributes her PhD success to her nurturing mother and doesn't credit her own hard work towards becoming a medical doctor. And then the next one is emotional reasoning. Believing that feelings reflect reality. So basically, this morning, Annie took a bus ride, and the moment she stepped onto the bus, a group of teenagers burst out laughing. Annie then realized that she had a massive rip in her stockings, and she felt really embarrassed about this. But in reality, these group of teenagers were laughing at a video that they shared, a funny video that they shared amongst each other, and had nothing to do with Annie. So that is emotional reasoning. And then labeling and mislabeling is the next one. And yeah, we can do this sometimes. I know myself, I can do this. Assigning labels to yourself based on single events. So the first time Annie tried to paint, she was not successful because she did not know that you can't use ordinary printer paper for watercolor. And then she calls herself stupid. When in reality, the more positive belief would have been, it was a learning experience. So now Annie knows that she needs watercolor paper. And then number 10 is personalization. I wonder who's guilty of this one. You take responsibility for events outside of your control. Annie's best friend is in a bad mood today. And Annie believes that it's because of her. But in reality, Margaret is just PMSing. And that's the 10 cognitive distortions. Now we jump into I don't know what you guys want to do first. Okay, so that was it's a lot to take in, and it is negative self-beliefs. So what I did was I asked Copilot if there was any benefits to having cognitive distortions. And this is what it gave me. But I do want to stress that overall and generally, cognitive distortions are considered unhelpful because they lead to irrational thinking and negative emotions. But in certain contexts, they might serve a temporary or adaptive function. So one of the benefits is self-preservation. An example is, like, for instance, with catastrophizing. It can heighten awareness for potential dangers, which will then prompt you not to take risky behaviors. So the next one is a motivation boost. And here is black and white thinking. It might push someone for perfectionism, so to achieve a higher benchmark.
Yeah.
And then third one is emotional protection. So minimization is a good example here. or denial. It can help individuals cope with overwhelming stress before they are ready to process it fully. So in the moment, they will minimize it in their minds until they can digest it fully, if that makes sense. And then number 4, and the fourth benefit is social bonding. Shared distorted beliefs. Yes, this happens. Like groupthink. It can create a sense of belonging to a community. And group thinking is basically when a group of people reach a consensus without any rational attempt to critically think, to apply critical thinking. And if you guys want to Google it afterwards and so forth, a good example of this was the NASA Challenger disaster of 1986. I don't know if some of you are aware of it. I'm sure you are.
I remember that vividly.
Yeah, it's where instead of the safety of the launch and the crew members, more emphasis was placed on the customer and the American public. Where they should have paid more attention to the safety. But we move. And then number 5, the final benefit is creative thinking. So overgeneralization or exaggerated thinking can sometimes lead to artistic or imaginary storytelling, which is very useful and helpful in today's day.
Definitely, especially if you're artist.
I see someone is requesting a box.
It's Martin. I have Martin. We would love to have you in a box. We're just going to let Ray go over the discussion, and then at the end, we're going to open the boxes for input and questions and so on. So please stick around until the end, and then you can come jump on a box and
stick around and find out.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have reached the point of overcoming cognitive distortions. Yes, it is possible. No, it is not easy, especially if you do suffer severely. I know it can vary from person to person. Everybody is so different, and everybody has their own, hills to climb.
Yeah.
But yes, we can overcome it. And then I'm going to list them, and then I will give you an example, a practical example of what I do. So the first step is to identify the distortion. I mentioned to Ellie earlier on, sometimes it's not that easy to mirror yourself, and maybe you can lean on a close friend or a partner or so forth to help you to identify. Obviously not in a malicious way. I wouldn't choose someone vindictive or, with something so vulnerable. But if you have a trusted person, it can help from an outside point of view. If you do, practice some of these cognitive distortions and you don't realize it. And then step 2 is examine the evidence. So is there proof? Ask yourself questions like, is it true? Is it false? Number 3 is to reframe the thought. And this is what I'm going to get into on break it down, like how to do it well, a practical example. So you replace the thought. I did give an example earlier on with regards to Annie's painting.
Yes.
Where she could have taken it up as a learning curve.
Yeah.
Instead of her, being stupid. She said. I didn't say Annie's stupid.
Ray, would you say, I suppose the first step as well is if you have a discussion with a loved one or your partner or whoever you say like a trusted friend, I take it you as the person that's suffering from that disorder need to acknowledge that you have a problem. I think that's probably the first hurdle to overcome is the realization that something is not kosher or it's not supposed to be in a certain way before you can move on to the next step. So it's that taking ownership of whatever it is. One of the steps that you could have identified to say, well, okay, yes, I am the black and white person. I'm struggling with this. This is a thing, and I need to deal with that. I take it that's the first step that you need to do is take that ownership.
Recognition.
So Ray, if you don't mind, before you go over Heidi, the things that we can do to like you were saying to how to do that, can I ask just a few questions?
Yes, absolutely, go for it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer all of them.
Right, that's also the other thing. If you don't want to answer or you're unable to answer, that's 100%. But one of the things that I want to know is when you explaining all the different cognitive distortions. When a person is struggling with cognitive distortions, would they typically struggle with one of those, some of those, or all of those?
It varies from person to person. Just like with what you guys have experienced with the personality tests and with the love language, everybody has a little bit of something.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that balancing scales. They vary from person to person. So also the degree of cognitive distortion is also varied if you obviously do suffer with your mental health. And especially like borderline personality disorder. Cognitive distortions is actually one of the elements that psychologists and psychiatrists use to identify or to diagnose if someone does have borderline personality disorder. So obviously, if you don't struggle or suffer that much, then it will be lessened. Like it will be lowered in your brain.
Yeah.
You will have a healthier way of thinking, basically.
Right. So then the other, sorry, Ray, just a few more, just for clarity before. So when Rudolf was saying like can insecurities contribute to the cognitive distortions, and you said in terms of which one is it that you said when it comes to
jumping to conclusions?
Jumping to conclusions, that could be true. So would you say that would each one of the cognitive distortions have another underlying cause, or what is the cause? What causes it?
The cause can be various things. It could be things like demographics. It could be cultural, and it could be passed down from like just how you were raised by your parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what could also be is past experiences. If you burnt your fingers in a relationship, like 5 times, you always go and search now for the worst that can happen. If something of a similar nature happens now with let's call it a new relationship, I suppose that can also be an effect, just past experiences. It might not be malicious at the time, but it might be perceived as such.
Right. Absolutely, Rudolph. I 100% agree with you.
Okay. With that. And then I had another question here. When it comes to the cognitive distortions, and it relates to extreme thinking, right? So if we think in how you innately resolve conflict subconsciously.
Absolutely. The internal Armageddon.
Right. So when we talk about these distortions that relates to extreme thinking, so would you say that there is a normal amount of that type of thinking? If I can say,
can I be rude and ask a question on a question?
Yes.
Have either of you in the boxes identified, and you don't have to say which one, but identified with anything that was said tonight?
So, Ray, I'll be happy to share from my side. So, I mean, from the things that you've mentioned, the 10 things, I can see some aspects in that in my life, along the way. To what degree, obviously, it might be like a very little thing, I might have experienced it somewhere along the line. It could be that you're just in a bad headspace at that moment when something happens. But I can say, you know, almost everything, as you say, like the personalities. We've got a little bit of everything in our lives, and I think it's just how you deal with that. And I take it that's where you will come to now as well. Is if it becomes a bigger problem, what do you do with it?
Yes, when
But
it
yes,
does.
I can find,
Yes.
I can
So
relate
I
to some.
also,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, go for it. Carry on.
No, I just want to say, I can relate to some of those, like um, let's say, for instance, the black and white, as an example. Either it's right or wrong, but if it's going wrong, you take it off on a tangent, or you make assumptions, go off and in a total different direction. I think everybody at some point of their life must have made assumptions along the line. So I think it holds true for any, I want to say, normal person as well.
So yeah,
Just the
so
level.
that's what I was asking if there is like, when does it become, is there like a some kind of level of where it's normal to think in those ways and it becomes extreme, or, but I see what Dee is saying there. But I see that, I agree with that. But I also relate to a lot of these, some a bit more than others. And one that you brought up is the personalization. So that is something that I definitely struggle with, but something that someone explained it to me once as a persecution complex. So I don't know if that is the accurate term for that. But if somebody in our group is mad, I will automatically think they're mad at me. I don't know why, but that is definitely something that I do.
And I think that speaks to the varying degrees again, Ellie. As far as a persecution complex, that is like an extreme level. And then there's people who like go through this thinking, this personalization thinking, just in particular events. So again, it won't, be as at unhealthy doses. But I think if you have like a complex where it kind of defines you a little bit, and that's like how your normal behavior is, or it's a regular occurrence,
Yeah.
then it is problematic. Then
Right.
I would say maybe seek medical attention, or maybe therapy.
Okay.
Not for you, sorry, but I just realized how that came
Okay, it's
across. I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah.
I probably do need a bit of therapy, so it's okay. But yeah, I hear you. If anybody struggles to a point where it becomes a problem, you recommend that they seek some medical attention. So I
Yeah,
get
I
that.
think that DS also summed it up quite nicely. If you see you do it in different situations with different people. So yes, I think that's a telltale sign to say, well, okay, we've got a problem.
Right.
You are a regular offender.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the fourth one is Socratic questioning. Is it based on facts or feelings? And here I come back to the facts. Don't give a fuck about your feelings. And then another one that you can do is practice mindfulness. Like, be present in the moment and actively avoid dwelling on negative thoughts or beliefs. And then a thought journal is also a really good idea. And this is what I do. So you can write and then reflect back. I don't reflect back though, but you can reflect back and then analyze objectively. But I do a journal. But you can do that as well. So write and then analyze, in hindsight. And then
Right. So can you give us an example? What would be something that you write down, and how do you reflect?
so basically, when I journal, I write down truthfully, honestly, doesn't matter how ugly it seems and so forth. But what I also do is I write the model. I draw the model. And then I write if something triggered me, and then I write what happened, or and how I could have changed that. But I will get to the model shortly.
Okay.
You know. And then, yeah, you can also consider the perspectives of others regarding the situation, which ties back to the loved ones. And then you can test your thoughts. Ellie's not going to like this one, but affirmations maybe. So you can experiment with behaviors that contradict your thoughts. And then you focus on solutions. This is a good one. Instead of dwelling on the problem at hand, and I think we can all do this, especially like when I always say things like problems and negative things, it's like it has a megaphone and it just comes and it screams over everything else. So instead of that, you can center yourself back to yourself and then try to find an actionable solution to the problem at hand. And then the 10th one, and the one I love the most, is self-compassion. Now, I'm just going to go through, I'm going to switch my camera off for a little while, and then I'm just going to take my phone out of the stand, if that's okay. So you can ask questions or just chat amongst each other, but I don't think I'll be long. I just want to flip my camera so that I can show you the
Perfect.
example.
No worries. So, Ellie, do you journal? Let's start off there because
I do journal. I do, and I do something similar to what Ray is saying. Sometimes when I'm not in a good headspace, and when I wake up in the morning, I'll write down what it is that I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, and I'll try and change it around by finding a solution to why I'm feeling like that in that moment, or whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, I also journal sometimes, when it comes to, I do believe that focus on the solution, not the problem, but I do feel like sometimes, there are things, I feel like we've spoken so much about trauma. I almost don't want to even say the word anymore, but sometimes we are met with those thoughts, it comes back to you and it hinders you. And so sometimes I'll just write it down, just to get it out. And it helps, it helps you make sense of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and it helps me, move past that thinking. So I do journal. And I journal about progress as well. I'm generally very proud of the progress that I've made in certain things. So I like to journal about that as well, just to acknowledge it.
I don't know if you guys would like to take a screenshot.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think that's not a bad idea. So I see also Dee might mention there. So Dee, I take it you journal as well. I never have the words for how I'm feeling. I use the famous emotion wheel. That really helps. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do apologize. My pterodactyl has gotten out of the bus, so he's going to be rowdy again. But I'm going to try and get through this as smoothly as possible. So here we have Annie again, and the goal with this is always to be like the end result should result in compassion or rational beliefs. And that includes self-compassion. This is something that is very near and dear to me, and I'll share with you what else I journal with regards to self-compassion. And then, okay, so we start off at the activating event. Go watch T-Rex, baby. Sorry, I am being distracted here.
Yeah, no worries.
You little monster. So the activating event, which is also known as the triggering event. This for Annie was that she attended a work function and no one spoke to her for 5 minutes. So in Annie's head, what happens is, because she is guilty of cognitive distortions, or distortive thinking, she says to herself in her head, I'm boring, nobody likes me, nobody wants me around, I shouldn't have come. So you can already just tell by those words like what the feeling inside must have been like. And then these beliefs lead to consequences, behaviors, and emotions. Annie's feeling self-critical and insecure. Here we go, Rudolph. So she isolates and spends some time in the bathroom and plans to leave the work function early. Now, this is the solution part. Dispute it. Labeling this, where she said she's boring, is unhelpful. And simply because 5 minutes went by and nobody said hi to Annie, doesn't mean anything. So Annie tells herself, it does take me some time to warm up to other people. And they will be glad that I am here. So because of that change in belief, and she could identify what was wrong with her thinking at that point in time, it leads to evidence behaviors and emotions. Annie is feeling more included and hopeful because of her redirected belief or changed belief. So she chose not to leave early. She chose to talk and laugh and engage with her colleagues. Yeah. So this leads to a healthy outcome. As when you stop here, that, it is an unhealthy outcome and it's usually irrational beliefs. So the end goal is rational beliefs and self-compassion. And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I just want to read here. Dee says, this is so awesome, well explained. Lord of Darkness said, great work, Ray, and it all said right. I also think you explained that very well, Ray, and I think you laid that out very nicely on the board as well.
I tried, guys.
I think you succeeded.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. I hope you're not being overly kind, but let me not be guilty of cognitive I almost said extortions. Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much, Teaspoon.
yeah, so I think the important part is to recognize the belief. Where you say when you dispute it. So that I think is the crux of the what do you call it, the wheel or the thought process? What is your explanation of that?
Absolutely. That is the goal. And I'm going to bring up Michael Jackson here. 2 of his songs are relevant now. Man in the Mirror. So that's introspection and recognizing that some beliefs are unhealthy. And yeah, when we have unhealthy behavioral outcomes, we might just backtrack and just go back to what we were thinking at that time, and then try and retrain our brains to think another way. And then the other one is we can ask Annie if she's okay. And Annie is all of us basically in the situation. So yeah, that is the outtake from this is if you do find yourself having related very strongly to a lot of these things, I would suggest seeking assistance, seeking therapy. Obviously, I'm, like I said before, I'm no expert. I am just a practitioner of this. And I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or therapist, but yeah, my 2 cents is I would recommend that.
100%. So, Dee and Lord of Darkness has made some comments. I'm going to start there with Dee. She says, I think that's the point between consequence and dispute, that you must be self-aware of what you are feeling, giving it a name and change it. Yes, 100%.
I also agree strongly with that. I think acknowledging it is a very important, name it and then change it. Absolutely.
Name it and change it. I love it.
Yeah, I almost want to go as far as say as name it and shame it, to change your mind about it. So a lot of darkness also said here. My therapist said that you notice the ships, but you do not have to harbor them. I think that's a brilliant analogy.
I love it.
I love it.
Absolutely. D. Annie, are you okay? Michael Jackson song.
Are you okay, Annie? Annie, are you okay?
And
Is
all the
Annie
darkness has
okay?
got in his head now.
Have you guys all seen Annie? Let me just show Annie again.
Yeah, show us Annie.
Let's see Annie.
In hindsight, I should have joined with another account and have Annie's a picture there as a profile.
Oh, yeah, I really don't like this drawing, but it is mine. And I would not be offended if you scream or run or have nightmare feel or laugh. I'll scream, ow, now randomly. No darkness. Thank you guys for having me. And thank you guys for making me feel so comfortable to talk about such a heavy topic.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ray,
yeah.
for offering and participating in this. I just want to ask, does anybody have any questions or input?
Oh, Annie joined.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we weren't talking about you, we promise. We're talking about Michael Jackson's Annie.
So I don't know if somebody wants to jump in a box. I suppose it will be a good time now as well.
Yes.
No, no, darkness.
I just, Ray, you were explaining that, so you said, sometimes people, they struggle mirroring themselves. So if you feel like you struggle with any of these things, maybe to confide in somebody, right? So, you who has, some understanding of this, do you often notice cognitive distortions in other people?
I do, and I identify them. Especially like with Blam and closer friends. But to just go out and tell someone that you're not that close to, you're doing this right now, is it can come across as quite attacking. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. And I'm gonna use Teaspoon. I'm gonna use you as an example. You reserve your own thoughts, and you try not to analyze other people. So this is more for self-help. That is my purpose of bringing it here tonight. It's not to see it in other people, to go around on a witch hunt.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's for self-reflection and for a healthier mind.
right. I love that.
Yeah, so I suppose it can be received as one of two outcomes. Either they accept it, that they've got a problem. Teaspoon. You stir. That I'll give you. You stir. Um, so either it can be accepted, in good spirit, or it can be, as you say, being received as like attacking, and I think once again that comes back to the insecurities, because I mean, if you address something of that nature, you are talking or you exposing a vulnerability in a person, and that's always dear to somebody's heart, where you can be hurt most deeply. So yeah, I suppose that's a difficult one. Is, do you voice your opinions or your views, or don't you? I think that's a difficult one from an outsider as well, if you do recognize these symptoms.
I think it comes down to the perspective on unsolicited advice. I feel like if somebody doesn't ask for it, it's probably not a good idea to share it with them. But I think people's opinions might differ on that, you know.
But
I have another suggestion, and I'm going to use one of the examples that I did use earlier on as well, with regards to, and me having a child as well. If my kid ever had to come to me and say something like what Annie said about the painting, oh, I'm stupid because she didn't know
yeah,
about the watercolor paper, then I would, as a mom, would say, no, honey, you're not. This was a learning curve.
mm,
So in that way you're practicing out the healthy belief on behalf of the other person. You're verbalizing it without telling the other person that you're guilty of a cognitive distortion right now and you need to stop that. No, no, no. So then you are practicing it in a healthy way as well, by giving them the healthy option.
Right. So you
yeah,
can, like what Ray is saying, Rudolf, is like you can kind of challenge it by verbalizing the healthy thought when you notice it in other people. Instead of saying, for example, that you think they've got this. Does that make sense, Rudolf?
yeah, it does. It does. And I see Floxy has also made a very, very good point here. We are on the extreme end. You can't hear advice. That is so true. That is so true. You are so consumed by your pain or your belief. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that blinds you. That blinds you. But I think, Rai, coming back to your example, I think that instills great belief systems in your child. So I would say that's good parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. That is good parenting.
Yeah, and we can parent each other. So if you see me do it, then
No, I want,
it's
yes, absolutely. I agree. I was
all
just thinking
things
about something
Rachel.
someone once said about gentle parenting. She's a grown-up who doesn't have a child, and she made a video. She fell onto gentle parenting TikTok, and she said she's adopted some of those methods into her relationships and friendships as a grown-up, and it's like made such a difference.
Oh
Oh
So
wow.
wow.
yeah,
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 that's another topic.
gentle
Yeah.
parenting.
Well,
Yeah.
parenting in general, yeah, but that's a
Yeah,
really one. Yeah. Although circumstances will create opportunities for people in a relationship to point it out. Mm,
Yes.
yeah.
100%. 100%. Teaspoon, but do you think that will require some sort of emotional um, what's the right word now? Maturity. I would say emotional maturity. And
Out of darkness.
Teaspoon says sure.
Yeah.
so, Lord of Darkness. I find talking to rocks great to get used to parenting. Is that because you're not getting any feedback or like any back chat? Is that is that the measuring stick that you compare to?
They listen more.
Ornaments for ears.
Yeah,
Ears for ornaments.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have any more questions for me, but that was it from my side.
Yeah, um, so still coming back to the journaling itself. So do you keep a journal handy at all times? And as and when you get these thoughts, is that when you put it to pen and paper, or do you take it, let's say half an hour? I'm using an arbitrary number here now. Half an hour at night time, to sit down and say, well, okay, today I had these and these and these thoughts or reactions or whatever it might have been. Do you half it down after the fact or as and when they happen?
So I always, well, as of not too long ago, I started journaling a while ago, but I wasn't as religious with it, for lack of a better term. But recently, like I bought a book, a journaling diary, and I think I finished it in 2 weeks. I filled it up.
Wow.
So it all depends on the day. So physical journal is hard for some people sometimes. And I do have a male friend who's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I also have an app called the Gratitude Diary. And it actually reminds you and it gives you prompts as well, positive prompts. So if maybe I'm having a bad day, and this has happened multiple times already, where you just have a bad day and you like maybe have a headache and you just think, oh, can this day be over? I can't wait to get to bed. Then I will see a journal prompt, name three simple things that you are grateful for that happened today, or name three simple things. Obviously, it learns about you. So if you have kids or whatever, it will ask you certain types of questions. But yeah, that is one of my other journaling methods on my phone.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it a night as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Rudolph, I think then I will also end the live here. Thank you, everybody, for contributing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you, Martin.
You're welcome.
Martin,
Thank you for being here.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Painted D, thank you. Ambrian,
Good night,
thank
everyone.
you. David,
Good night, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you for joining. See you guys next week.
yep.
See ya.